Sometimes I trip out on surrender. Like they want us to surrender in recovery. And I'm like, I'm not going to surrender. Because surrender means you can't fight anymore. Or something, right? But if I'm still using dope, I already lost. Like if I'm still getting high, if I'm still putting chemicals in my body to change the way I feel, I already lost. Because I'm not experiencing the full I'm not participating in the full experience of living. Because part of that is the feelings, part of that is the emotions, part of that is like having thoughts enter my mind and then allowing the thoughts to leave like waves on a beach. Part of that is learning how to mend like a fractured spirit. You know what I mean? A fractured personality. Learning how to become one person instead of trying to please everyone else except for you know, the relationship between myself and my higher power, the God of my understanding. So yeah, there's no sense in even thinking about like worried about the semantics of surrender, because one definition, because if I'm getting loaded, if I'm putting dope in my body, if I'm putting chemicals in my body, I already lost. So I mean, the surrender part, the reason I had an issue with surrender is because I Googled it and it said submit to a greater enemy. My enemy, the enemy that I'm talking about, that I didn't want to surrender to, I was using it like that's the enemy that wants to kill me. That's the enemy that made it like a good idea to flood drugs into the neighborhoods. That thinking, that diseased thinking, that made it okay, that made it profitable. That's, to me, that's the diseased thinking. And if I surrender to that, if I surrender to that greater enemy, then I'm setting myself up for the kill. That's how I look at it. So like surrendering to it would be putting dope into my body in that term of surrender. But I also looked up a definition in the dictionary that said surrender to a more powerful entity, which is, you know, God, a new way of life. Another thing I can use, another phrasing I like to use with the surrender part before I is like, what am I surrendering? I'm surrendering these weapons. Like I'm surrendering the pipe and the needle. I'm surrendering these weapons because I'm fighting this battle that I'm losing with these weapons because I'm using the enemy's weapons against myself. So I surrender those weapons. I don't need those weapons anymore. What do? Surrender the weapons and pick up some tools. Like I pick up the ultimate weapon against addiction, which is another recovering addict. One addict helping another is without parallel. I know it sounds corny, but it's really like a collective effort produces an abundance of recovery. So I pick up a lot of skills, a lot of life skills. So I put down that sword. The crack pipe was my shield because it kept me at a distance from everybody. It kept me in a sense safe, you know, in a warped sense, safe from life. And then the needle was my sword. I'm trying to fight this spiritual warfare, this spiritual battle with this sword, but I'm stabbing myself with the sword. So like I surrender those weapons, and then I pick up a pen and I start doing some writing. I start doing some journaling, and that's when the pen becomes mightier than the sword. And the pen is another tool because I can process my thoughts and emotions and passions and pain and joy and everything. I can put it on paper, and it gives a voice. It gives a voice to that little inner child who who still feels hurt from whatever life experience that I had. You know what I mean? And it's a residual thing that some people learn how to process it. Other people learn to put chemicals into our body to learn how to avoid it, to run away from it. So yeah, I don't know. It was just a little tidbits, some 6-minute tidbits on surrendering. Surrender those weapons formed against me, right? I'm not using them against myself anymore. I pick up some tools, something constructive, and I start to build. I start to build a foundation of recovery with the ultimate weapon against addiction, which is another recovering addict. The ultimate vehicle for recovery is the group. That's why the reason it's an ultimate vehicle for recovery is because a collective effort produces an abundance. Peace. Thank you for allowing me to share.